Welcome to the seminars. This is Dr. William Schimmel. It's our 31st year. The title of our seminars this year is A Bellows Pleated World Full of Ins and Outs. Truly it is. We started back in 1994, and we started in an art gallery in Soho. Now, due to the pandemic, we've moved into the virtual dimension with wonderful visual art and many different angles for the accordion. Let me tell you a story. A number of years ago, I performed at the concert house in Berlin, and we were invited to dinner at the American Academy. And after dinner, who walks in the door but Thomas Friedman, who wrote the famous book, The World is Flat. And he was holding a cell phone. And I went over and stopped him, and I said, "The world is bellows pleated, full of ins and outs." And he smiled, pointed to a cell phone, and politely excused himself. Now, I have no idea who was on that particular cell phone at that particular time, and perhaps no one. But I didn't expect him to enter the room. And sure enough, there he was. And I had the opportunity to at least approach him to say the world is bellows pleated, which I believe it is. Full of ins and outs, expanding and contracting. And that is what our weekend is going to be all about. I've been working on filmic reality, where the accordion can be a catalyst for making your own film. And it's interesting for composers to look at this particular dimension. You have to be a little more transparent so you can invite the listener in where they can make their own film as well. I have a little piece I composed called South the Border, which entails all of the Americas. And go ahead, enjoy your own film. And now, Dr. Denise Konchelik will give us a little talk on the enjoyment of the accordion.
Enjoyment of the accordion in a bellows pleated world, full of ins and outs. About 15 years ago, Marie Kondo became a viral sensation with her decluttering method. Her catchphrase, "Does this spark joy?" She advises us to cherish the things that bring them joy. In a bellows pleated world, full of ins and outs, how does an accordion bring us joy? By playing it? By hearing it? Just by seeing it? If you look at joy from a philosophical perspective, you can consider the past, the present, and the future. Where did it come from? Whose idea was it? How did it affect my past? What is it to me? Where am I going with it? What do I do with it? How do I perceive it? And again, where am I going with it? What do I want to do with it? What do I see the accordion doing in the world? If you consider these similar aspects from an emotional frame of mind, think about these. Living in the past can enhance or bring about depression. I remember better days. I recall how I was happy when. Living in the past dwells on memories. Yet living in the future and in the present can bring about peace and harmony. Where am I in this moment? What am I doing right now? How does the world perceive me in this time? Furthermore, if we go into the future, positing what ifs can create anxiety. What if I don't play this note? What if I can't do this? What if this happens? What ifs create anxiety? Now, an existential view emphasizes human existence, individual responsibility, and the freedom for one to create meaning and purpose in life. The accordion, to me, survives in this bellows pleated world. The instrument can enhance one's self-awareness, their freedom to express themselves, and to bring joy to others. The duality of the accordion itself is a myriad of opposites. When you're learning to play the accordion, it can be fun, it can be interesting, but it can be very frustrating. I can't see the notes, I can't see the keys, I don't know where my hands are. It can be fun, it can be interesting, but it can be frustrating. The accordion can be an instrument of joy, experiencing the joy of a wedding, of an engagement, hearing the music that makes people dance, makes people happy. And yet the accordion can pull on the heartstrings of the listener and of the player, invoking sadness, again with the memories, or the grief, playing at a memorial service. The accordion can be both in the moment or bring about memories of the past. Now, over the past 80 years or so, the accordion has received a bad rap. Yet, no one has ever asked me to stop playing it. In playing public park performances, I have seen children dance, smile, move to the music, had young people engage in questions about the instrument. How do you play that? Where did you learn to play that? Is it easy? How can I learn how to play? And then had older people speak fondly of their relatives that played the accordion, recalling having it performed in a band by a solo performer at an event. Not only does playing the accordion strengthen one's own self-worth, but it truly is an instrument with which you can make friends. I have played duets. I have played in quartets and quintets. I have played in multiple accordion orchestras. Just playing the instrument itself engages people to come to you. The accordion can make music in all styles and in all places. Enjoy.
Since we're evoking the pleasure zone of the accordion, just imagine yourself having a sarsaparilla in a park, listening to an accordion soloist, perhaps with a band, in a gazebo, and just relaxing and having a really good time. Elliot Sharp and I have been collaborating over the past 10 years. We have a new digital download, The World is a Pleated Bellows. Purchase it on Bandcamp. We will now hear another one of our pieces, Interpolation 1. Will Holzhauser is an accordionist that I have been proud to mentor over the years. And he will give a talk on how to make your piano accordion sound diatonic. Will Holzhauser.
Hi, I'm Will Holzhauser, and I'm here to talk about making the piano accordion sound diatonic. Most of us here at BELLOWS Seminars play piano accordion, but as we all know, there are many kinds of accordions around the world. Button accordions of all kinds, both diatonic and chromatic, bions, bandoneons, melodeons, and there's a whole diversity of ways of playing that goes with each of these instruments. There are many, many approaches to music and to accordion technique around the world. So we can learn a lot from those as piano accordionists. The larger point here is there's more than one way to play the accordion, and a good accordion technique is not just one thing. Sometimes if you want to access a different sound or a different style, you might have to let go of some of your habits, some of your assumptions about accordion technique. So one of my favorite cousins of the piano accordion is this instrument. This is the single row diatonic button accordion, sometimes referred to as the Cajun accordion. It was brought to Louisiana by German immigrants, probably in the 19th century, and it was adopted by Cajuns and Afro-Creoles into Cajun and Zydeco music. And those players developed some really exciting new ways of using this instrument. I can't really play this instrument, but I'm going to bang out a few notes just to give you an idea of the sound. Some of the great innovators of this instrument were Amédée Ardouin, Irie Lejeune, and later on Beaujacq and Steve Riley. So I highly recommend checking out those players. But here's just a few notes to let you know what it sounds like. So the sound and style of the diatonic Cajun accordion is exuberant, it's expressive, it's rhythmically driving, it's influenced by African music, Caribbean music, Irish and Scottish music, German music, polkas, waltzes, all kinds of influences that came together in Louisiana. It fits very well with rock and country and blues music. It's a very American way of playing the accordion. And it's very useful if you're playing in a band that does one of those styles, or if you just want to bring some of this sound into your own music. So let's jump into some of the details. How do you evoke the sound of that little diatonic accordion on the big piano accordion? Well, to start with, you use a full reed setting. The diatonic accordion has 4 banks of reeds, low, middle, middle, high. So that's what I'm going to use here on my Titano. If you don't have 4 banks of reeds, that's okay. Just turn on all the reeds you have. It's not a wet sound. It's not about being detuned. It's more of a dry sound. But if your accordion is wet tuned, don't worry about it. So that's where you start. And then step 1 is try making a full, buzzy, drony sound with your accordion. Start out with an octave. Play it nice and loud. Then add a 5th in the middle of the octave. Right now I'm playing G, a higher G, and a D in between. And let those overtones ring out. You can add the left hand if you want to. These chords with 2 notes, only the root and the 5th, leaving out the 3rd, are very useful in this kind of music. An electric guitarist might call this a power chord. It has a strong impact. So if you're on a G chord, you might just use G and D. If you change to a D chord, you might use A, D, and A. And again, if you're playing with a rock band, or country, or a blues band, this is a good way to blend in with that kind of sound. You can also use these chords rhythmically. The next thing is, when playing lines and melodies, make them détaché, make the notes separated. Leave a little space between the notes. This style is not about playing legato. This gives it more rhythmic punch. Some people might describe this kind of playing as choppy. It might sound strange if you're used to a smooth legato style of accordion playing. So this is one area where you might have to give up some of your habits or assumptions if you want to access this other kind of sound. One thing you can add when you're playing those lines is occasional double stops. That is a second note played either below or above the main note in the melody. This also helps the rhythm pop out. I'll demonstrate that. Here's a short phrase without any double stops. Now I'll add some double stops. One more time. So at one point I added this octave, and another point I added this 3rd. Sometimes you add the double stop on the beat, sometimes you add it off the beat in a syncopated place in the rhythm. So again, it's just another way of making the rhythm speak. Another thing you can add is short grace notes before the main note in the melody. So here's the phrase with no grace notes. Then you add the grace notes. So I'm going to add one before this B. Or I could add it before a D. That also helps the rhythm pop. Sometimes you can add the grace note right before a double stop, and that makes the double stop pop out even more. Another classic trick from this style is to hold out a higher note and repeat a lower note below it. One of the wonderful things about the accordion, of course, is because we can hold out these long sustained notes, there are a lot of great ways to do layering on our instrument. And this is a way that they layer in this kind of music. a little bit about the left hand. One time I was playing a gig, I was playing some Cajun music, and a man came up to me and said he played the accordion and asked, "How do you make that Cajun sound?" So I started out by showing him something in the left hand, how you play a waltz rhythm in the left hand. And he said, with a little bit of a skeptical tone, he said, "Oh, you drag your basses." So this is another area where you might have to leave behind your habits, or the classic accordion technique of keeping your bass notes and chords short by default. That's an important thing to learn, and it's useful in many places, but this style, it's more about keeping the bass notes and the chords long and a little bit droning. And if you use a full reed setting in the right hand, you can make the right hand speak out over that. It'll be nicely balanced. So let me demonstrate all these techniques that I've talked about by playing a waltz. This is a Cajun waltz called Valse de Grand Bois. It's from the repertoire of the Balfa brothers. That means Waltz of the Big Woods. So learning from the sound and style of the diatonic accordion can add a new dimension to your piano accordion playing. And you don't have to give up the way you play. Think of this as adding a new dimension or a new zone to your style. It's like expanding into a new area. As I said at the beginning, there are many, many ways to play the accordion well. And so if you do choose to explore this, jump into it, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And thanks as always to Bill for asking me to be part of the seminars. And I look forward to seeing all of you in real life. Thanks again.
When I was 16, I was studying jazz accordion rather seriously. And I realized that I really couldn't play like the jazz accordionist I was studying, all the books that I was playing, and I loved them, don't get me wrong, but I couldn't play like them. And I was looking for something else. And I heard Jimmy Smith, the Hammond B3 jazz organist, and I went crazy. And I wanted to imitate him, and I realized that he did something that no one else did. And he was able to use the percussion stop on the B3 and find a way to play in between the notes. And in doing that, he didn't have to play very much. He could simply, with the beat, play boom, beep boom, beep boom, beep. And it really wasn't a syncopation. At least not in the true sense of the word. And of course, I really wanted to imitate that on my accordion. And so I worked rather hard on it and listened to all his records. And he put out a new record, a new album called Back at the Chicken Shack. And I was taking a walk. This is Philadelphia. I was taking a walk and I was buying a shirt on Germantown Avenue. They had really, really good deals on shirts or any kind of clothes. And I remember walking through an arcade, and at the end of the arcade was this record store that had all these incredible jazz records. Ray Charles, Jimmy Smith, and they had everything. And sure enough, there was an album in the window back at the Chicken Shack. And so I went into the records store, and the gentleman who ran the record store, or the owner, or whatever, he was a boho guy with a beard. And he said, "You look distressed, son." And I said, "I am. I came here to buy a shirt, and I really want that record." And he said, "Well, you have a problem, son. You can't play a shirt, and you can't wear a record." He said, "But I have a solution. Why don't you buy the single of Back at the Chicken Shack? And I'll give you, as a bonus, another single, Cannonball Adderley's Jive Samba. And you'll still have enough money left to buy your shirt." And that was the best day of my 16th year. Many, many years later, I ran into Billy Hart. I was playing a concert at the New School with Wynton Marsalis. Billy Hart was there playing along with Ethan Iverson, looking good, playing fantastic. And I went over to him and said, "Billy, I'm Bill Schimmel." And he said, "I know who you are." And he probably didn't, but he was really a nice guy. And I said, "I've been working all these years to get my accordion to sound like Jimmy's organ." And he said to me, "Bill, I've been working all these years to get my drums to sound like Jimmy's organ." It was a nice conversation. Back at the Chicken Shack, Jimmy Smith. Vespere is a work I put together in honor of Daniel Desiderio, who has left us. And he was one of the great accordion players of yesteryear. And I wanted to play like him at that time. I was about 12 years old. My uncle had all these Ampco records that he recorded, and I listened to them and I wore them out. In this recording, you will hear the sections that were worn out, which I made through performance. And the pieces that I put together were Arnilla Bolero, El Cabrito, Cubanera Rumba, and Manchito, and a song I composed and sing called At Least I Drop Sorrow.
least I drop sorrow. I'm playing again. Beg, steal, and borrow until I remain. At least I drop sorrow. I'm playing the game. I'll beg, steal, and borrow, and I will remain. At least I drop sorrow. At least I drop sorrow. I'm playing the game. I'll beg, steal, and borrow, and so I'll remain. At least I drop sorrow. I'm singing again. I'll beg, steal, and borrow until I see you again. At least I dropped sorrow.
This concludes Masterclass number 1. We'll take a 5-minute break. Welcome to concert number 1. We're going to begin with the work Mind Dance Uncertainty. This was conceived, choreographed, and danced by Micki Goodman, my wife, and myself as composer and performer on accordion. And I think the title speaks for itself. We're living in very uncertain times. And to capture that feeling and emotion, we present you with this video. Girls Gone Vile is a work that I composed for the Main Squeeze Orchestra. It's a homage to Kurt Weill. And in this video are a series of paintings by George Wesley Bellows. Of course, no pun intended. And they're pre-Wymore paintings, mostly realist. So here is Girls Gone Vile. Now we have a work by Denise Konchelik, 4:11. Giornata is a work by me that incorporates Bach, but used in a very, very different sort of way. There are no fugues. It's completely melismatic, and it covers a great variety of music that one can consider global. And I subtitled it Global Bach. So here is Giornata. Another accordion ambassador has passed away this year, Guy Kliszewicz. And he came to New York as an avant-gardist, and then he discovered his Slovenian roots. And there's a composition that he composed, My Walk with Ligeti. And Ligeti also, a staunch avant-gardist in his early years, discovered his Hungarian roots. And so here is Slovenian tango in honor of Guy Kliszewicz. The next piece is Accordion Satellite, and 3 minutes around the bellows pleated world. I'll now play a work by Lee McClure, a veteran of the seminars. And this work is called Night Shifts. And Lee was a taxi driver, and I can just see him riding through the night. And this piece depicts it very, very well. Here is Night Shifts. Mary Spencer Knapp is greatly influenced by Yvette Honer, one of the great musette accordionists of our time. And here is her video, and she's making a show as well as a film about her, Mary Spencer Knapp. Benjamin Ickes has been around with us for quite a long time. I've mentored him over the years. And he just told me he got his master's from Harvard. And he's going to play juju. And juju it's not quite voodoo. It's sort of in between. And apparently he said this was a piece that he played in the Hungry Marching Band. And they were a band that would show up at a lot of events. And I believe Benjamin played with them at one particular time as well. I remember playing a concert that was given for Jan Wenner at La Buenadine restaurant in New York. And like everybody showed up. Everybody from Robin Williams to Tom Wolfe, Yoko Ono, and Al Gore walked in. And as a matter of fact, I told my band, I said, don't look, play, and so forth. And then when we were finished our gig, we left and so forth. And all of a sudden I saw this band go through the door, a tuba and so forth. And I believe they were the Hungry Marching Band. So let's listen to Benjamin Ickes play juju. Cornmo was one of our great indie rock stars, and he also was an accordionist. Cornmo and I recorded the entire Schubert's Winterreise, and he did it legitimately, with a legit voice, no jazz arrangements, no rock versions and so forth, but we did it straight. And today he's going to perform, of course, on video, a piece that he's done before, but he keeps working on it and improving the video. And he put together a beautiful video Epileti.
I'm Cornmo. Here's my song. I'm wearing accordion player clothes, and accordion player clothes are similar to if you go to a funny church. That's why people play accordion, so that they can dress like they're going to funny church. I'm gonna sing this 3 times. It's the same chorus over and over and over again. The first time is for you that don't know it. The second time is for those who are getting familiar with it. And third time is if you were too shy to sing the first 2 times. Here it goes. That's me when I say that's me when I say my girlfriend got it for me all April the 1st. I've been using it for 6 weeks now. It really works. Here's the second time. So last time, say you got a new job and you didn't want that job, but you got a cat at home and that cat is hungry. And that cat said, you gotta go get a job because I gotta eat and I only have paws. I can't do the things that you do with those computers and whatnot. So you're on your way to work, and by the way, you had to move to a new town. And that new town has a lot of traffic. And you're not used to that traffic. And you don't like traffic at all. Halfway through that traffic, you're saying, should I just quit and go home? Is it worth killing my soul? Well, I've got a cat. That cat wants me to go to work, so I guess I'll go to work. What do? Well, you've heard this song twice. Now it's in your back pocket. It's going to give you a full reset. A full reset to get you back to where you want to be for just a little bit. Depending on what you do, you can't sing it all the time. You might break something. If there's nothing breakable, go ahead and sing it all day. Here's the last time you can walk the aisle with me.
Gene Vilonis did a video on my favorite train ride, that train ride along the Hudson. And here is her video, Hudson River Sunset Train. Gene Pritzker is the director of Composers Concordance, and he seems to have a premiere every day or twice a day or 3 times a day. And here is a premiere, and I hope he's watching. And he put this together with the video artist Graham Elliott. This was done during the pandemic. It's called Lockdown Lullaby. When I went to hear Will Holzhauser at Barbès, Bob Goldberg walked in. He's been involved with the seminars for many, many years. And we started to talk. And he was already thinking about what to do for the seminars. And I think both of us at the same time shared this idea of doing something that started black and white, moved to sepia, and then eventually color, and then eventually took off into another dimension. And so this is Bob Goldberg's video, Squeeze and Be Squeezed.
mighty like the forest, like the trees, like the trees, standing tall, standing together, we are free, we are free. We are free, 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 we are free.
This marks the end of concert number 1.